Next, we're going to look at how to edit an IES file. And this can be done most easily within Photometric Toolbox. So we'll look at that method first. Let's edit the one we just created. First, we'll make sure that the other one, nothing else is selected, and only the one we want to edit is selected over here. And then I click the hammer, which is the edit command, right? Because when you hit something with a hammer, you change its characteristics. Let's start with the Keywords tab first. Now, you can add additional keywords from the list over here on the left. You just do the little drag and drop thing. I'm going to drag lamp position over here. I'm going to type in vertical. Good, that was easy. Then on the General Information tab. On the General Information tab, there are a lot of things that can be changed, and it's important to note here that changing some things can have an effect on other things, or not, depending on the settings. So for example, notice that I can change the number of lamps, the lumens per lamp, and or the candela multiplier. If I made a typing error on the number of lamps but got all the candela values correct, I'd want to simply change the value for number of lamps without having this affect anything else. However, if in changing the number of lamps I wanted to scale up all the candela values accordingly, then this is a different scenario. So let's look at settings over here on the right. Settings. This is where I can determine whether changing one thing will affect everything else or not. I have three choices here. Scaling the candela multiplier and scaling the candela values. These will both affect the amount of light emitted from the luminaire. However, if I select has no effect, that means that no other values would change. That's what I would select if I had originally typed the wrong number of lamps in, for example, and everything else was correct. So a note of caution here. Two lamp, just because I know what you might be thinking, right? I know what you might be tempted to do, but be careful. Two lamp luminaires do not typically emit twice as much light as one lamp luminaires. The two lamps can interfere with each other's light output, and each one will block some of the light from the other one. And if the lamp is affected by thermal factors, such as with fluorescents and LEDs, then this too will have an effect on the amount of light that is emitted from the fixture. The thermal effects inside the fixture will be different when the number of lamps change, so be careful. Be sure you know what you're doing if you're going to change an existing photometric report. How about a different scenario? Perhaps I want to create a report for this luminaire with a higher output metal halide lamp, such as a super metal halide. If the bulb shape, MOL, and LCL are all the same as with the original, then really the only difference is the amount of light emitted. In this case, I would want to enter the new lumens per lamp value, which would be right here. Right? Enter the new lumens per lamp value. And I would want the setting to be scale candela values. Scale candela values. This would also be useful for a file where all of the values are based on 1,000 lamp lumens. This used to be done more often than it is today, and sometimes still seen in EU LUMDAT files. More on that later. On the Angles tab, here I can change the specific angles, but not the number of angles. Changing the number of angles is done with a convert tool, which you'll see just in a bit. I'm going to change this angle here from 80 to 85 just to show that I can. And then on the Candela Values tab, I see that that angle is changed here. Now here is where I can actually change the value if I like, right? If I made a typo before. And if for some reason you want to edit the raw data file, you can do that. You can do it with a simple editor program like Notepad. You can also do it from here within Photometric Toolbox. So for those of you who like to do things the hard way, you click on the Edit Raw button here, and you open a window that looks just like what you see when you open the file in Notepad. Note the heading, Experts Only. If you're planning to make any changes here, you should have a copy of LM6302 open for reference. Make sure that you change the numbers that you mean to be changing. And note that in editing the raw file, just as you might do here or in Notepad, this only changes the particular value or values that you edit. No other changes happen unless you type them in. We're not going to make any changes this way, so I'm going to cancel. And finally, note that by default, we're working on a copy of the original. This is a safety precaution. If you actually wanted to change the original, then you would select that here. And when you're done, you simply click OK, and notice that that file is now over here in my list. Now, see the little save icon next to it, and down here it says not saved? Both are indications that this file has not yet been saved. You can see it here, you can play with it here, but it's not saved. So if you exit Photometric Toolbox, you won't have it anymore unless you save it. That happens with editing and converting. If you want to keep the changes, then you have to click the Save button up here. And this is where I can give it a better name if I want, and then click Save.